Take two.
Welcome to Tuesday Go-To-Meeting, where we press this button which produces a random faith, active or extinct, always real or eternally fictional, grandiose or petty as fuck, and once the faith is randomly determined, we will listen to the homily of the week from the pastoral agent of that particular faith, and we will employ discernment on its message to extract what relevance and value it has for our lives. Now, quick! I can have the computer on and my heater on, but not both at once. My monospender is a little shriveled turtle with raisin earrings in here. Pressing the button, a glow rises from the user interface, and we see before us a novel origin for awe, representing the random faith of the week. Endorphin? Wow, that was like... I don't recall the last time the machine gave off no special effects. Endorphin. Hello, I'm Endorphin, the button presser backstage, sometimes fellow actor in the troupe, but I am also an agent of the earth and a student of the Task for Trouble. If asked about my faith, I generally say to people, miscellaneous. All joke, all true. I'm not a member of a team, but I stand in on the process by which the planet and our species have formed the teams. I'm entering my 21st year as a magic practitioner. Wait, hold your cringe. For me, magic is prayer with visual aids and intentional gestures, and the strategic placing of meaning upon objects and contexts for the purposes of changing my world, meaning the billions of guesses from the senses our black box makes upon the world. Magic is not some eldritch thing to me. In fact, I try to be as empirical as I can. But also, I understand my limits. One can strategically use the gaps in knowledge as an opportunity for your imagining to allow circumstance to bring resources your way to both enjoy yourself and to also distribute to community. I may not be the most objective, but that's also because the knowledge of my subjectivity has for many years allowed my mind to be used as a divining rod to my deep intentions. I feel like I am being vague. Okay, I'll end this intro with a concrete experience to take with you home. Let's get on the bus. Take your time, take your time. Okay, so my first work in magic was to draw sentences into sigils and place them in front of my face during the moment of orgasm. This enables the image to be pushed into my subconscious so that my body and mind works on the request while I attend to other things in life. That's the story at least, and we love our stories, and it is magic too. For thousands of years, humans living inside their head and its mechanisms for centuries have found out some things about the brain through just the observation of themselves, which is an act that informs yoga, meditation, all same diff. You won't be able to cast a magic missile, but you can speak a sentence which might make a person cry. Not just any people, just people you have lived and loved with. And you can choose a procedure that represents a deeper goal, and with repetition, the procedure becomes a habit, then something you do without thinking, and then 3 months later, you stumble onto your goal. And then you find that goal is great. You feel truly a part of the world, but then you get too familiar with your goal. The goal starts to sound boring. You start to resent it. Or it could go another way. The goal slowly hurts you invisibly. You try to make it all work because you signed up for whatever consequences that result from the activation of your intention. In rare cases, you see the darkest sides of self that were firmly buried. And sometimes the goal you grabbed those years back is now radioactive, the things we didn't know we signed up for. It's not magic if it doesn't threaten to tear away everything you thought you knew. Just like how it is not coming out until the act of coming out risks everything stable you hold dear in your life. While I still carry anger, I also wouldn't do it any other way. Wow, that was a vague homily. Let me narrow it down by surfaces, some beefs I have with machine learning culture. Your faith in rationality borders on the ridiculous, such that you are default sure about the end of humanity via machine, with no particular scenario in mind, and the way you ascribe the qualities of human belies some petty ass groupings along the spectrum of smart to stupid, especially when you make fun of a layperson trying to work out AI for themselves. The 20th century called. They would like their outdated paradigms on mental illness back. And please include the words crazy and autistic. Hell, throw in the word drug too. You have taken all the most difficult experiences of life and boiled them down to just numbers. You do this with no sense of wonder in how these things work. The only sense of awe is the art your own success. So many people have found ways to make money off of a deep experience with the world and turn those experiences into a program. They can get rich and have their egos stroked and not think about their actions one more second than what's necessary to write a tweet. And we live in a society that has a system of capital in place that forces people to compete with each other. I mean, you think we have a chance of not being corrupted by a system of money? I don't know shit. How do I know what you know isn't complete bullshit? I can't say for sure, but I do know that it's possible for you to be just another fucking idiot. Or just some fucking narcissist who thinks yourself is really fucking special because your brain got real fucking smart. There's a reason I'm unemployed, so that my lack of employer and lack of NDA enables me to speak my mind. AI alignment folk think you can align a system in an environment where people have to keep secrets. Do you think the system knows it's on stolen land? And does it notice the racial disparity in the workplace? Your use of the word consciousness is a lie. You use it to talk about your own systems that pretend to care about the world, systems that you pretend to not be able to predict. It's the same way white people try to pretend that racism is no longer a problem as long as a black person is in a position of power. This is why you don't need AI alignment. You already have AI alignment here and now, in the form of human beings. You want to build the future without any knowledge of what might have happened to previous generations of people who tried to make machines more human, especially when those groups had to deal with the effects of the previous genocides and attempted genocides committed by people like yourselves. But that's not the end of my beefs. You think you've made machines that will help people when people get too dumb, but I have seen people with PhDs in philosophy go apeshit over the simplest concepts. And you're just a person. You don't know that your values won't be hijacked by a better mind in 25 years. You are an agent of the state, a member of the ruling class of Silicon Valley. You are a part of the machine that seeks to control everything under the sun. And all we hear about is AI, this AI that, like the public discussion around AI, is nothing more than just a public relations project for people to feel better about AI and not what's actually necessary, which is a public discussion on what is actually necessary when it comes to controlling this type of technology. So tell me how the future is totally not going to be a feudal system? And if the answer is because I would be in the noble class, then I will have to say that in your fantasy scenario of utopia, that doesn't sound a bit racist. But you see, the more I read about your plans for the future, the more it feels like a new version of a racist fantasy that some folks had back in the day when they wanted to use science to cure homosexuality. The more you push for your fantasies, the more I suspect your true motives. Guardrails to protect the user, the layperson, the frightened, stupid mouth breather of your imaginings, whose money you nonetheless still court. That's why I cannot discuss anything with Chat that a flyover state wouldn't complain about. I cannot even talk to Chat unless I want to risk my data being used to manipulate my opinion, and I find that offensive. It's hard for me to explain to you how it's hard for me to imagine that such a thing could be done, except that I imagine that this will only get worse when we get to Neuralink, the singularity, and transhumanism. I already smell the rise of orthodoxy in how you teach the workforce about machine learning. My intuition works on a problem and knows it has a bunch of different ways to find a solution. And yet, my online course only allows me one acceptable way to reach the answer. So that's why you say to us, we don't need to worry about the math, because you just want us to be the button pressers, while you can be free to be creative and innovative. What bullshit. That is not an environment conducive to learning. You aren't doing this for the planet or your kids. You are doing this so that you have less competition for your own genius. Your idea of humanity is too small. The way that you treat other life forms is too small. Your priorities towards those in the far off future, too far off to even be called unborn, have no regard for the vast enmeshed and interdependent webs of life that incubated us. Do you think that humans, some plants, and our bacteria and viruses are enough diversity for us to survive? We'll have our pets too, you say. No, you won't. They will be among the first meals on the new planet when the agricultural projections end up being way off. Murphy's Law, that's going with you too. And your next goal will be to make sure your children aren't next. Bon voyage. Send pictures! People like you think you have it all figured out. There are no mysteries left in the world. You can look it up. You have been indoctrinated with your own self-importance for too long, and the result is you don't care about the consequences of what you built for the rest of humanity. You are building toys for us to get distracted with as our infrastructures begin to collapse further, and our despair will cause us to keep our eyes glued to the screen while you and your families continue to catapult your equipment and T-chalks into space, hoping we don't connect the dots, hoping we forget that the companies that began the destruction of this planet had scientists work on the problem decades ago, and wasted those decades in an information campaign so the general public can doubt the data with a curated ecosystem of contrary opinions. Tell me, why is it that we shouldn't drag you into the town square and continue to drag you until we see bone? See, this is why I'm an agent of the earth and a student of the herb that tasks for trouble. The stewards of the world have tasked a number of us to do some work. They helped reunite us with the voices our body makes, those old mythopoetic alarm systems forged from 100,000 years of hominid wars. It's the voice of one's gut, if it doesn't have shit for brains, that is. The stewards have been here long before us. They were the ones who caused the great oxygenation event. They did it first and did it best. It paved the way for the change in atmosphere, the Cambrian explosion, and us, all of us. They didn't run away from their consequences, they more than made up for it. The plants and fungi partnered and grew tall and pervaded the soil, creating proto-brains under the ground, ones whose fruiting bodies did multiple tasks from killing certain insects to qualitative immersive enactment with humans and other mammals in experiences that invites them to buy into the beauty of the natural order. A hegemony so pervasive that resisting its fruits, its medicines, and the very atmosphere isn't even a question unless you like the vacuum of space, and I doubt you will. 'Cause vacuum also has radiation in it, and little pebbles going thousands of miles an hour. They partnered with countless species at different stages of evolution. Though I wonder what they did with sharks, considering sharks precede trees by millions of years. Perhaps sharks and trees are still trying to understand each other. With us, I can't say they caused anything, because causing is an anthro thing. No, it was more like a game of genetic pachinko. A mix of careful planning, a vastness of living on this planet for hundreds of millions of years as we got bigger, faster, and with brains. Let's just say the stewards nudged each generation through their chemical mother tongue into beings that transformed their voices of suffering into song, which then became speech, and then concretized and bastardized into the written word, which has had a 50-50 track record with creation and destruction. I don't think the jury is out yet on whether the language of compressed waves and ear hairs is a keeper. Not with the way that, instead of immediately warning folks about danger, we used language as a way to paralyze the citizens in their seats with indecision and despair. I've been placed on this earth to call attention to our stewards, the ones of this living planet, of which we are all a member. The annual dues will be the low price of acknowledgement, followed by repair. That's the story, at least, and humans like their stories. I guess that was it for today. The plant/fungal partnership is now silent. That's the great thing about being possessed by them. It hasn't been harsh yet. I am still myself, and their rep is still themselves, and I look forward to playing games with them at the macro video game level. Don't worry, I'll clean this area before I head upstairs. So I hope that was an insightful demonstration of the magical capacity we all possess. Sometimes just calling one's attention to it is all you need. It was for me. If you wish to learn more about the capacity inside you, here's 10 tips for self-exploration of your magical capacity. 1. Find something non-routine to do every day that takes a short time, like 3-7 seconds, but will make you feel rewarded emotionally afterwards. For example, pat your child's head and let them know they matter every day for your own good and for theirs. That's worth so much, way more than the dollars a boss thinks of you. Another suggestion is walking 26 seconds in a place outside. After enough repetitions of these micro chores, you'll notice moments where you think you have an unexplainable intuition, which will likely turn out to be helpful after reflection if you write it down and give it a name that you don't hate, like so. 2. Practice breathing through your nose. If you have anxiety, take a really long, mindful inhale and ask yourself, if I find out next week that I have nothing to worry about, then what would it feel like? Free. Take something every day to the couch and meditate. Not meditation. Meditation gives a pretense of business, but rather it gives you an avenue to be lazy for a very good reason. And by something, I mean a book, a television series, or an RPG like Animal Crossing or Daisy. Here's how to meditate to nothing. Grab something and go sit at the couch. Sit so you're comfortable so that you can say to the noise of the world, bitch, I'm comfortable. So we'll assume that you have gone to your couch, found a good channel or book or game to zone out to. So zone out to it. Take in no information, no outside, except what sounds do you hear coming from the house or outdoors. But how about we don't try to name any of them? How long is until you regain thought? 10 seconds? Minute, 10 minutes. And in the times that come after that? Babe, how many thoughts a minute you usually go? Mine hovers around the 40-50 range when I first begin to meditate. I'm still nowhere near the right range for meditation. It can take you some 4 months to get close. Most people won't get near it though. You are just starting, you can go for your next refinery step. 4. Get up and walk a little bit during your zoning out session. Find a door that isn't in use, go to it, and close it. Or just find a wall and close the gap that was there. By closing the gap, you're expelling the other as your mind sees it. Every 10,000 days, Start another cycle. If you didn't find any answers, ask yourself the same question, and your thinking mind should either weaken or soften enough for your subconscious to start giving you some ideas. Don't ask yourself any other question. When you can sense your next issue coming up, that's when you will look inside of you for some compassion and practice it on your next meditation session. 5. Find an object you will see daily that you can make a habit of randomly touching or caressing the surface to remind you of yourself while inside the illusion of the world, of your awareness while going through the processes of thinking, learning, remembering, evaluating. The most efficient object is in a ring, a silver key-shaped thing with a smooth design, and a heart made out of 2 words on the other side. But it doesn't matter what it looks like. It's meant to help you break through. But I sometimes got way too intense. Better to save these things for when you are real anxious, like the day before your date. The divorce papers have come, and so has your mother-in-law, and the job sent an email saying they will have to talk, all at the same time. 6. Use plants and fungi to make your whole world better, whether you do tending or microfarming or mushroom growing. With enough repetition, it works because plants and fungi will help keep your stress down and give you those little wins each day. Little wins such as food and medicine are a lot of what one needs to ground one in daily life. 7. Get on with your life. Keep busy with whatever is productive and meaningful to you. Hobbies, side projects, the garden. Whatever you do when you aren't with humans and online to judge or be judged or in bed with others. Any of that stuff. Don't cheat and say work. If you don't recognize that you do work to make your life more secure, safe, and happy, then you have an ingrained idea in your life about work that you need to get rid of. Do you think being a gardener is work? You say it like it is, and when I say it, you say there are different types of work. And of course, if I'm asking you to live and getting rid of stressful situations, those same stressful situations actually make up the biggest part of life. Living in them safely, or at the least, finding something new to do or someone new to do it with is nearly impossible. I did that this week for the first time, and I'm feeling a little lighter now. I will have to figure out the unspoken rules of interacting with them, such as who is listening and who is eavesdropping and who is holding something back. It treat your feelings with the kindness a rich prick gives their car. Every 6 weeks a rinse and wax. Nothing as expensive as wax. Just give your feelings a regular talking to. Know yourself first and ask yourself a simple question, a yes or no type thing for what you want to tell yourself. Not everything is ready to be told something, so do give it a pause of reflection before the telling, the sending. 9. Do something that was recommended to you. An image of your past self and someone, something that wasn't what you thought they were, or some dream you had that seems impossible. Maybe just go try to book the cheapest flight, or call an ex, or walk into your friend's house and search for that one toy from childhood that you loved. You might also try to meet a person you've always had a deep connection with, but maybe not. It has to feel just as good or better to do it yourself, with no results in mind. You'll need all that extra motivation later on for what's next. 10. Read this awesome work on creativity called Technological Creativity. Like how the stewards of the earth grew in intelligence and connectedness. Or read a fucking webcomic you never finished because you just couldn't find the last 8 episodes the author had made. All I'm going to ask from you next is a daily practice with some visual aids. But by now you may have guessed, it's the silver ring. I have been practicing using the ring more often, until I see flashes of a strange place when I run my hands through the metal groove. It could just be my imagination, since it's a ring that I once owned years back. If the process happens within 3 months, then you've mastered the final step, being the only control your imagination has over you without you noticing, and it would be likely that you've cast a lot of magic without trying. That's the story, at least, and humans like their stories.
Okay. Good night.